Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the fourth episode on the Color Authority podcast for 2025. We just all came back from Milan, at least most of lucky ones. We just came back from Milan, and that's why today I'm going to be speaking to Evelien Reich. She's the editor-in-chief of MANERA Benelux, a new English language addition to the MANERA family in Spain and Mexico, and it's set to launch in September. She has a decades-long career in media, has built up extensive expertise in design and interiors. I'd call her a design hunter. She's a sought-after host at design events and is known for her sharp eye and deep understanding of interior aesthetics. She has a particular passion for the power of color in homes, how it shapes atmosphere, brings joy, and makes spaces feel alive. Let's listen to her and see what she saw in Milan that was of interest. Good morning, Evelien. I hope you're well, and I welcome you to the Color Authority podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
We were just talking about how we're still recovering from Milan. I think Milan, we're going to talk a lot about Milan, of course, but I think Milan is getting crazier every year. I think just on the Tuesday, there were over 1,000 events. Oh, what were your first impressions?
Yeah, I keep joking that I should look into either getting a hologram made or, looking into cloning so that you could be in like different places at the same time. It is indeed a crazy week and it seems to be getting crazier. Some of that's good, some of that I'm not too sure about, but no, it was certainly an eventful week and my feet have just about recovered. But yeah, no, it was good to be there.
Yeah, it's always good to be there. I think it's well, we're going to talk about that in a while. I think especially it's common ground for the whole world to meet, because I think you got people from China, you got your friends, your professional friend from Australia. There's the Mexicans, there's the Colombians. Everybody's there.
Everybody's there indeed. And I try to keep enough space to meet new people, the people that I already know from the Netherlands or from England or from Spain. It's not that I try to avoid them, but this is the place where you can actually meet new people. Luckily, that's still a possibility. I had the pleasure of connecting with new people as well, so you can sort of expand your worldview. I think that's really important.
No, exactly. Well, before we're gonna tap into what we saw in Milan and the novelty, perhaps also things that you were like, okay, I'm gonna skip that part next year. We are also going to talk about color because that's what the podcast is called. We are going to talk a bit more about color. But first, I want to know what color means to you personally, Evelien.
Yeah, color is one of the most important things in life, I think. I I try to imagine sometimes what my world would look like if it wasn't there, and then it just then it drains it of life. And so I like to surround myself with a lot of color. I'm in my home right now, and when this house was built, we sort of made a game of it to avoid using what is in Holland the norm, which is the RAL 9010. So there was no white in our house, and that actually forced us to think about what we like in color and which colors do we feel comfortable with. And it turned out that I like, and luckily my husband as well, we like quite moody colors, these sort of new neutrals, I guess. So like a moss green and a blush pink, and it kind of envelops you like a warm blanket. So color is incredibly important, and I am really heartened to see that this is an idea that is spreading, that people are incorporating color in their life more and more, not just in their homes, but also in their wardrobes. I think it's really not just fun, but also important to find out which colors do something to you, which colors make you feel happy, which colors make you feel comfortable. It's part of becoming a functioning adult, I think.
Yeah, I love that. Color is so the color application is being part of being a functional adult. I quite like that. I've never
Well,
heard
it's the same thing
that one before.
But it's the same thing. Like if you grow up, then you figure out what kind of music you like, what kind of food you like. And most people aren't chefs or normal musicians, but they still know what kind of music or what kind of food they like. And then sometimes people are flabbergasted when you ask them about color, and they usually refer to something like, well, I'm not an expert, I'm not a designer. And then I'm like, well, how does that matter? Like, you get dressed every morning, you figured out what you feel comfortable with, presenting yourself to the rest of the world. Why not expand that and look what color can do in the rest of your life?
Yep. I think that's the issue about trends. I think when people, because a lot of people hear about trends, but also color trends, and they feel that they have to apply those. And when they're not an expert in them or knowing how to apply them or knowing what they are, they're like, okay, I'm just going to skip the whole part. That's not what color is. Color is not just what trend is. Color is obviously exactly what you said. It's emotion.
Well, it's not just that. And if you talk about trends, then I always like to think of trends as a reaction to what is already happening in society. And the trick is to find out what it's referring to. Like, what is color reacting to? I always find that to be an interesting puzzle to figure out what is happening in the world and how we are responding to it. And color is one of the most immediate things that we are drawn to. So if you just pick a color because it is on trend, then you're not really delving into what that color means. It might sound a little philosophical, but there is a sort of Newton-esque like action reaction that we have with color, which I find infinitely exciting and interesting to investigate.
I think also that also happens with design and shape and material, round shapes, edgy ones, whatever we're looking at. And you are a design hunter. That's what you do. I mean, I like to call you a design hunter. You hunt for what is new, you hunt what is different. Sometimes it's not always new, it's just if like it's put in a different jacket. You know, what what do you search for when you're looking for something that's new or different? How does that come about?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I sometimes refer to it as my sort of internal bingo card. So, yeah, so if you are at an event like Milan Design Week and you walk around, you start to notice sort of common threads. If you pay attention, you will see things pop up again and again. If you see something once, you might like it, you might not. That's sort of a lizard brain reaction to it. If you see it 3 times, then it's time to start paying attention. If you see it 9 times, then you can consider it like a fully fledged trend that will have an impact on the market and on, by extension, our lives. So that is what I do. I'm kind of like a collector. So I have like my little basket and I walk around and I think, oh, this is fun. And then all of a sudden I think, this is like the third time I've seen this thing. And then I kind of, my ears just prick up and I just kind of go, all right, this is time to pay attention and to sort of look out for it and to avoid this sort of confirmation bias where you only look for those things and ignore everything else. You're just looking for something that'll say, see what I mean? I was right all the time, which, can happen. But that's kind of what I look for. I look for the things that stand out, things that may be presented in a different way, or things that, like, there's this weird thing that happens, like no matter if we are across the world, we are all responding to the same elements in the universe, in this world that we live in. And so people oftentimes respond in quite similar ways. And that's how these, doesn't matter if it's a designer from Mexico or from the Netherlands or from Asia, it doesn't matter. They all respond in similar ways. And so you get these similar trends popping up again and again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I look for. I look for the similarities and try to find these threads and to combine them into my own personal superstring theory.
I love that. And when you look into color, so obviously, because as you said, color is one of the first things we notice, and that is obviously also, they've confirmed that it's the second information that arrives to our brain. So it is very impactful. When you look for color in design and also interiors, because obviously you're very much also in the interior and architecture world, what do you look for that you find really new? Like, because, color, you can't reinvent color too often. It's more the application that you can reinvent.
Yeah. What I noticed recently is I was reminded of something that a designer from Sweden, her name is Tekla Silverin, she said once during a talk, she said, I tried to combine something dirty with something flirty. And for the longest time, we had a lot of very clear colors. And so what I found really exciting this year is that there was this little bit of dirty coming in, and it was combined often with like a texture, like a pronounced texture, whether it was really fluffy or grainy, and then combined with something really clear. And so this sort of grit that was coming in, which makes things a little less polished. I think for a long time, things were quite polished and very, very clean. And now we've tried to muddy the waters a little bit. So that's something that stood out to me, that there was quite a bit of that. And I thought there was a sofa design. It's designed by a Dutch design duo called Raw Color. And they presented it a number of years ago, but it was now presented in this very gritty, fluffy fabric that had like a myriad of colors in this one fabric with a lot of black at the bases of it. So that gives it this little bit of grime. And it was presented on this bright blue floor. I thought, oh, that's new. And then I started seeing this bit of, I don't know, I saw it quite in a number of places. Adra as well had fabrics that had this depth to it. So if you make a fabric very cleanly with like a minimal amount of different threads, then then it becomes quite flat. And for a long time, we loved this sort of flatness to it. That it was just this solid block of color. And now these fabrics are getting some depth again. And yeah, this was something that I found that stuck out to me.
Yeah. When I look at also listening now to you, and I think we all know what's happening geopolitically, obviously. I mean, there's something we can't ignore, absolutely, and it's influencing everybody. It's that darkness to color, the dirtiness, and also that grittiness. I think it's coming through a bit of the darker times that we are living, but yet there's optimism, because there's the flirty color, as you said, there's the clean colors as well. So I think it's an interesting period of time in design and what's happening color wise and the combinations.
Yeah. And I think this year, last year as well, but this year it was very pronounced that we were sort of looking back to the 70s and the 80s, which were also times of quite extreme turmoil worldwide. And so it isn't weird that we refer to these times in our past that remind us of this status in like whether it's the political or the environmental. When I grew up talking about the environment, this was quite a new conversation, but we talked about it incessantly. And now this has come to the fore again. And so this is just one element, but we are looking back a little bit towards that time. And that is also influencing this prevalence for these type of colors, but also finishes. So this combination with quite a lot of glossy finishes combined with, I see you laughing, but like the glossy finish is definitely where I live. Like I saw a table in this caramel color, a taquini, and oh my God, I'm already married, but I might divorce him just to marry that table. I think we might be quite happy together, like for the rest of our lives. I think we could do it. Yeah. And so there is this sort of, and I think that's also something I haven't seen for a while, is that design is quite sexy again. That it's and it was really inviting, and this combined with this love of set design that is now in Milan everywhere. I think, for instance, the show that Dimora Studio did with Loro Piana is a very clear case of one that they would love to make a movie, and I would say go for it. We need something in this line, but also this love of set design to completely envelops like us and reminds us that these places are for living.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're already talking a bit about the things that we really love, but what was on my Instagram, I put the top 10, but in the end, it's 5, the ones that I truly loved. But
I'm really curious to hear what you liked. If we agree on things, let's. Oh, it's going to sound maybe a little too obvious, but the installation by Hermes, I thought was a step that it's in the same space that they have held this exhibition for years and years and years now. So you know the space. And so this year, what they did is they took away that space and they made this white box with these floating columns that reflected color underneath. And it reminded me instantly of the work of James Turrell.
yeah.
Is all about color and our perception of it. And so you weren't immediately presented with the objects that they've also developed this year. Those were all at the back. But if you just looked in, there were just these floating shapes that reflected a color like a red and a green and a blue. And I thought it was so striking just to take away this entire space and just to refocus our our mind and our on just this color. So I thought that was really striking. What did you think? Did you like it?
I put my phone underneath to see how they did it because obviously I mean, that's just the color girl in me. And I was like, how did they do it?
Apparently, there were people lying on the floor trying to figure out how it was
I
done.
was like, are they going to arrest me now? Like, do they even want us to? And I was like, they were fine with it. So luckily they were fine with it. But I think it was, I didn't quite like last year,
Okay.
although it was very material, but I was a little bit like, okay. This time I liked how architectural it was. Architectural, very clean, and I liked the simplicity of it. I think that's what I liked. I think that they created the surprise effect with color, which I think what everybody's looking for.
I think that there were quite a few people sitting on these steps on the edge of this space, just looking at it,
Yep.
just inviting it in. Just the installation as a whole, which I thought was very clever. And then if we're just talking about that's just the presentation,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also these sort of single products. So I was at the fair. It was an Eurolucha year, and so there's an Australian band called Rakumba, and they have a collaboration with Studio Truly Truly, who are also Australian, but they live in Holland, so I claim them as ours. And they have this beautiful light made from wool. And I think wool is such an interesting material because right now, wool, on one hand of the spectrum, it is a waste that sheep farmers don't know what to do with. They have to get rid of it. These sheep were raised, almost engineered that they need to get rid of this coat, but farmers have to pay to do that. They won't make any money off that wool. And then you go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, and then you're in a store and someone says, this is premium. This is 100% wool. And I don't know how that happens. I don't know how we allow that to happen. Right now in the Netherlands, we destroy about 1.5 million kilo of wool every single year. And the excuse is that it's not good wool, but it's just because we've lost the ability to do anything worthwhile with it. And so I'm really excited by the fact that a studio like Truly Truly has taken this material and actually highlighted it in a beautiful lighting design. That it was also, if you touched it, this is like this soft ball. The entire stand just turned off, which I thought was really, it must have been terrible to work there an
Yeah.
entire week, like the lights going on and off all the time with people touching these balls. But it was just stunning. And so that there is room at a commercial fair for this type of storytelling to highlight this material that we really need to re-examine, which is used more and more also not just outside of fabric, outside of products, but also inside, because actually, inside sofas, it's an amazing material. You could use it for a number of applications. So we need to re-examine it and sort of rediscover it. So that's also something that I really liked. It's not just about like these big installations that have this wow effect, but also like these smaller stories that I think if you take the time to discover them are really worthwhile.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think I haven't seen it.
That was like my number two. And
That was my
then
number two. What's your three?
uh I really liked the Muto apartment. This used almost like a single color per room, which I thought was outstanding and not in an obvious way. They weren't all the colors that you've come maybe to expect from the Danes. And so on the other side of the spectrum, there was an apartment called Casa Ornella, which was very, very busy. They had a Mediterranean theme this year. They've done this for a few years now, and this was just fabulous. Like, if you think that you are in a house and you think that you've done too much, I suggest you look up pictures of this apartment, because you will realize that you're about like 10% in on what is, where you reach the limit where you think, well, maybe now we've gone overboard. There was everything. There were stripes, and there was a Geoponte-esque ceiling, a mirrored finish on a beautiful kitchen with a hob over it. Like, it was in a sort of also this caramel color. It was just like, let's just do everything. Let's just do everything and see where we are. There were tigers. There were these poofs made of rope. It was just everything, and it blended together fantastically.
I
Just
saw
to see.
tigers in more places. Now that you mentioned tigers, I saw it in the Drowler's apartment, which was also fantastic. That's in my top five. And I saw also, I think, Liedewij Iddekoort at Rosanna Orlandi. I think there's a tiger in one of her carpets as well. So it's interesting that the tiger, for some reason, and it's not the year of the tiger. So let's also make that clear. It's not. It's funny that I saw several tigers. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good animal. And I saw also something that I really like that just now reminded me of is this sort of tequila sunrise effect.
Mm.
So there's still quite a few gradients around, not as many as before, but there's like one that is now being used all over the place, and it goes from like a sort of citrusy, like a limoncello yellow, to quite sort of almost like a pinky orange. And I was thinking, oh, this would look great anywhere but where I live. Because I think sometimes we like to use these strong colors, and then, the light that we have in the Netherlands doesn't really allow for it. My sister lives on a tropical island. She lives on Curacao. And so her children grew up there. And my niece has an amazing sort of color style, but she likes all these super, super bright colors because she's used to the effect it has when you have sun on a bright color. And so they look sometimes a little out of place here, but she doesn't care. I think that's just the most fantastic thing. Just these are my colors. I grew up with these colors. I feel comfortable with these colors. I'm just going to live with like orange and apple green and bright blue. I think it's just an amazing thing just to find out where you live color wise.
Your fifth, which is your last one that you would put in?
Oh, yeah, I have to give a little shout out to design duo called Rive Rochon, who were showing in not one, not two, but three places, and all of them outstanding. So they showed a number of objects at Rosanna Orlandi that were 3D printed with sand. It's by a German company called Sandhelden, if I'm getting that right. And they had this beautiful, also a little bit of a gradient finish. And then for their next trick, they took over the fountain at the big palazzo at Alcova. And this is like a half circle, also with this sort of tequila sunrise gradient. And it wasn't just like a beautiful object, it was also a solar panel. So when everyone, left at the end of the day, that thing lit up, and it's just stunning. They actually work with a glass factory in the Netherlands. The factory makes all their glass pieces, which they work with glass a lot. And so the son of this company is actually, I think he's studying engineering, and figured like maybe we can make solar panels a little bit more interesting. And so he's now patented this new, I have to refer to him about the technical aspect of this, but you're actually able to make these beautiful objects and not just have it be like a black finish or like a print. This was like through and through. So I think there's films in between, but it was stunning. And then three, it was their 10-year anniversary of the studio exhibition in Cinque Vie, which is a really a great sort of, it's an area of Milan that is sort of grown over the last couple of years to real prominence. And so they had a beautiful installation combining not just their own pieces made out of glass, but also light and music. It's just, yeah, I think a lot of people who had the experience, it was quite, people always say, oh, it's an immersive experience. And this was actually an immersive experience that I thought was stunning. And I have to just say one more thing. On my first day, I arranged for some bikes, and then the first day I had to sort of road test them a little bit because I was the one who took them around the boxes as well. And so I did a little ride around Cinque Vie, and I went to Boon Room.
Yeah.
Oh my God. This only happens in Milan, that you find a former bank building that isn't in use, is still in its original, it has all the original features and they all look fantastic. And then you get Andlight and Boom Room taking over this place and just filling it with the most fantastic furniture. And yeah, that was like,
Agree.
wow. Really, yeah, it's really great. If you like your first day and the first thing you see is like spot on, you think, yeah, this'll do. This'll do just fine.
Yeah,
So that
because
was like
they're
it's
functional, timeless, and it's material. And I think those
yeah.
are three so important keywords when it comes.
Yeah. And also, I think to just add to that, I think it's really funny that in a year that when there was the Luce at the fair, that there were so many outstanding lights in town as well. And the use of light was so important in a lot of exhibits. I thought that stuck out to me.
Because the Muto apartment, which also I like very much because they adapted the light to the season that the room was projected in. So autumn had a different light. So the whole sensorial part, I think, was really trending. What colors did you really see? Because you said caramel, and you're definitely in love with caramel. That's clear. What else did you?
Yeah, there's a floor in my house that will pretty soon be painted in that color. I think I'm just gonna give it a little moment. I think I have to convince my husband that it needs to be gloss as well, because I think it'll just look fab. How do I put this? Use of color is in like it's quite cyclical.
Mhm.
So we go round and round and round. And so we are now in our warm, I think maybe at the warmest phase of where we are. That we are just at the tipping point. I think we are just like, if you went to this fair, and I urged anyone who's listening and who went, and they have to look in their pictures and go looking for the blues, because you won't find a lot of them. There were not a lot of blues anywhere. And if there were a blue, they were like a really warm petrol blue. So we are now in this phase where we're in love with the burgundy and the caramel and the browns and the yellows. There's a lot of that. And then we kind of throw in a little bit of this sort of, that's like the only blue there was, like this Yves Klein blue. This is very, very strong, but like not a lot else. And then combined with, I was quite surprised that there was still this, how do I describe this? It's a very, very, very light but very punchy pistachio. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I saw it was the
Yeah.
mood color as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's been around for a while, just like this butter yellow. All right, I have to tell you, like, I think maybe 8 years ago, I went to visit Kvadrat in Denmark, and it was like, if you've ever been, if you've never been, you should definitely swing an invite to go see them. And so we got the whole tour, and we're in the studio, and there's all these people working on like the new fabrics and the new colors. And the head designer said, "Yes, I really strongly believe in butter yellow." I remember going home thinking, well, that was fun, but butter yellow, like, who's going to use that? Like, and completely missing the mark on that. Like, absolutely, that's like a thing that's been going on for quite a while, and it combines very well with all these other colors. So there's like almost like a grimy eau de nude, like a green, but it has a little bit of, and so I think that's why it's still kicking around, because it combines so well, and also because I think it's a really good alternative to white. I think that's also why that very light green is still around, because it's you can use it as a base on your walls and on your ceilings, and it won't be white, but it would still be light. And I think a lot of people still like most of their rooms to be quite light, apart from me. And so, yeah, so those I think were the standout colors. Also, this Bordeaux red. And so I'm really curious to see what happens next year, whether we will invite these cooler tones. Like there is a coolness because, like, also like part of this sort of, trend bingo, like I defy anyone to find the gold at this fair, because there was silver everywhere, but there was no gold. It
And
was
it's
like
so funny
a
because it was full.
smattering of copper, but like the gold was gone.
Yeah, look at the price of gold. I think that's logic.
Yeah, but also this idea of using gold seems wrong right now. I think that has a little bit like this ostentatiousness that sometimes we identify with the use of gold. I think we're just not feeling it. So there's, and also the use of metal in its rawest form also relates to this idea of it being like there's a lot of aluminium and being used right now. And one of the reasons that people like using aluminium is because it's 100% recyclable. So it feels very much like a sustainable choice. So you can make it part of a circular production. And so the best way to use it then is in its purest form, which is to not do anything to it. Now, I love me some anodized colored aluminium. I really do. There's a studio in Rotterdam called Studio Loop Loop who do amazing things with plant dyes. You should, everyone, like, go grab your phone and look it up. But that's also something that I really liked. This use of this really cool metal. It gives it a bit of, I don't know, a bit of toughness that I think we need right now.
Yeah.
What about you?
It's a mix. Well, I was just going to comment about the gold thing because when I was in Art Week Mexico in February, for obvious reason, it's the continent that produces most of the gold. Latin America in general, there was a lot of gold because there were the Bolivians, there were the Colombians, and they obviously all had silver and gold in their artwork. So that was interesting because art obviously probably is a longer investment than a design piece. So that was interesting. I think that's what makes it different. You're close to the source. It might be cheaper, and also art pieces are obviously not always also produced this year. I mean, they may, have been produced a couple of years ago. I think definitely what I saw is a lot of the warm cold. So the cold didn't come from the color. The cold came from the chrome, aluminum, the reflective surfaces. But then it was mixed with the fluffiness. There was so much fluffiness this year, wasn't it? Like this, the Moroso,
Yeah.
the Nilufar, obviously exhibition. It was all. I mean, you even had to put on sockies, to get into the space. And I think that's interesting how there is more contrast with the shiny metal, and then which is obviously also cold, even at touch, and the warm fluffiness, like Liddy teddy bear style.
Yeah. Yeah. I like almost like, but it had almost like a Muppet like
Mhm.
texture, Muffins it's not like a fake fur per se, although the Needlefire that you referred to, that was fake fur, but it had a bit more stringiness to it.
Mhm.
In the most places I saw it. They were like, that's like Oscar, the Muppet from Sesame Street who lives in the bin. It's a very old reference because I am advanced in my years, I guess. But that's what it reminded me of. I really like that reference. I'm just quite happy. I'm going to stick with it. Yeah, but that's true. That's true that the gloss was coming from something. And the coldness was coming from the material itself. That's a good point. Lots of mirrors as well. Lots of mirror finishes as well.
Interesting.
Like very interesting. Yeah.
It's so reflective, it's a reflection of where we are, where we're going, and what we want. I mean, that's a little bit how I always see reflectiveness and light, because light was obviously Euroluce. There was a lot of different ways to design with light. What did you think shape wise? What was happening shape wise?
there is still a lot of this organic form around, but what I found interesting is that there seems to be sort of a return to a bit more formality,
Mm.
if that makes sense. This also connects to the fact that a lot of brands are showing fewer new pieces, which I am very happy about. Like at my first real Salona, which is a long time ago, I had the pleasure of speaking with Patricia Chiola, who at that moment said that she would be quite happy if Salona took place once every 2 years.
Yeah.
So pieces would have time to find their way into the market. You, you have to see something a number of times before you actually find a place for it. Like you think, this belongs here, or this is how I can use this there. And that goes across the board, whether it's lighting or furniture or even the color. It takes time. And so if we keep bombarding the market with new, more pieces, like lots and lots of pieces, you get a market that's inundated, and lots of these pieces don't have time to connect with its, audience, which is, I think, also a reason why still a lot of these classic designs are still doing so, so well. But I was quite heartened by the fact that that brands were showing fewer pieces or just decided to forego new pieces and just focused on how they presented them, to use new fabrics and new finishes to make people look at them with new eyes. So, I know I've forgotten your question. Does that make sense?
No, it was on the forms and shapes.
Yeah, so we are still reinvestigating these classics, looking at them again. And that means that we are moving away from a lot of the sort of blobbiness. I mean, it's still there, but I think we are sort of rediscovering that, a chair can still look like a chair. And this also is something that and this might just be me and might just be wishful thinking on my part, but for a fair number of years, the design community as a whole had decided that if someone was going to change the world and was going to save everything, it was going to be design. Like completely forgetting that there are also, I don't know, engineers, doctors,
Scientists.
like artists, like that maybe a little humility might be okay. Like we need designers, we definitely need designers, and we need companies, and we need manufacturers, and we need all of it. But the only reason that's going to work is we work together. And it doesn't mean that, design just works with design. We have to connect to all these different industries. So the great thing about Milan is, and a lot of other fairs, is that they have now incorporated a lot of talking and a lot of connecting. And so you see that also in the design. So there are a lot of designs that actually cater to this connection. So circular sofas where you can gather and talk about how we are going to save, this ball of rock. And so I think that's quite interesting. But this humility also comes into like what we actually put out. And to like this, I visited the fair of Arco. It's a Dutch brand, and they recently acquired the rights to a design that was originally made for Pastu. It's called the Vision Cupboard, and it went to Arco because the designers wanted it to go to Arco, which I thought was like the greatest compliment. And this factory actually went back to the drawing board and said, okay, so how are we going to make this cupboard? It's made out of blocks, and you can basically make your own. It's beautifully made. And what they did was like some was made with MDF, and now they want to also make it like in wood, like it's all wood.
Mm.
And so you get all these beautiful finishes just to fine tune these designs and make them like more than they were. Tufty Time by Patricia Chiola has been re-examined to give it a bit more depth, because for tall people, like, most Dutch people, it was like a little it wasn't deep enough, so lacked a little bit of comfort. And so there's re-examining, and just to sort of say, maybe we should also work on ourselves a little bit and what we've already put out. I thought that was welcoming. That was like really, there's like a welcome change, I guess. Yeah.
I think it coming back to your comment, like you could just also do Milan biannually. I fully agree with that, and I think also, honestly speaking, if you skip Milan a year, you're not going to miss a lot either. Because, in my very humble opinion, I do think that it was harder this year to find what was different. I think there is a lot more chaos, and that's the lines. It is the amount of people. And it's sometimes also, I feel brands are just trying to scream very loud without having the substance. And I think getting to the nitty gritty was a little bit more difficult. And honestly speaking, I felt then we need more sustainable projects as well. I think that was we're moving again away from that. And I think that is a dangerous direction for a fair that every year produces so much, exactly what you said. We need time as consumers to absorb something, and then we're already planning Milan next year. They already have the dates out, so everybody's like, you know
Yeah, yeah. I understand that the city of Milan relies on having this fair every year. It needs it. And I bumped into Marcel Wanders
Mhm.
on the street across from Louis Vuitton. There was a huge queue outside.
In his beautiful black leather
Yes,
jacket. Yes.
and he actually, the brand Moi, was showing at the fair for the first time, and they now have a permanent showroom in Milan as well. So they've actually grown up a little bit. That's what he said, I think. Yes. And I asked him like what he thought about all these exhibits that have these long, long lines in town. And he said like all these exhibits in town, they don't exist if there isn't a fair. The fair is the thing. And if there's like if nobody comes to the fair, nobody actually buys things, and if there's no dealers and all these, then you're just left with these exhibits, which might be lovely to visit, but they don't, like, in the long run, maybe mean that much. I personally would, and this might be controversial, I'm so sorry, but apologizing in advance for saying this, but I could do without the Google, like these kind of exhibits, like
All right.
they're
Yeah.
nice, but I don't really understand what it has to do with what I'm there to do. And so that is part of it. Like, a lot of people are showing up to visit these large installations, which might be fantastic to view, but maybe have, like, these companies don't really have a role to play in what that event is actually about.
Range Rover was the good one.
Like, you spend this money on something really, really worthwhile for most people, you know, like that'd be great. Like, spend the money on, I know, curating your own platform to make sure that, we don't get inundated with AI websites. I don't know. It's just a thought. But I think that has a lot to do with it, to actually get back to what that event is actually about, and to build out in a way that is sustainable for the long run. So I would be very happy. Who was this? This I heard from, also a Dutch designer, Helle Jongerius. Someone ran into her, I think 2 years ago, and asked her, like, had she been to, I don't know, Rosanna or Landi? And then Hella said, "Oh, no, no, no! I only go to the talks. I come here only for the talks. Like, I've seen the stuff. I'm only going to go to, like, the places where we can actually have a conversation." And that'd be really great. It'd be really great if we could sort of divide it. Maybe we could even do, like, one year you have only this sort of talks, and the other year you have, like, the stuff, and that would give everyone a bit of a breather. I don't know, just a thought. Like, consider it. Like, I'd be quite happy to do that. I have to, maybe this won't make it into the podcast, but I have to mention something that I think I'm still upset about. And so there was an installation by Paolo Sorrentino at the fair, and so we had to show up early. We were told to show up early. We got into this long, long line. And as press, maybe, sometimes you
That's
can,
annoying.
Yeah, well, when you can sidestep it a little bit, but we have to get in this line. We get into finally get to these sort of sliding doors. It turns out it's an elevator. The elevator goes up, I don't know, maybe a meter off the floor. Not even that. I could have stepped, I could have taken that step. And so we looked past, and we just said, like, listen, this thing only takes two at a time. Like, this is a fair that attracts 400,000 people, like, every edition, and you design an installation that only takes two people at a time. Like, even like, do the math. This whole experience, like, if you went through the whole thing, I won't spoil it for anyone, but it wasn't worth it. And then to be told when you came out that the whole point was that it was about the sort of beauty of waiting. And I'm thinking,
Exclusivity.
well,
It's exclusivity what they're doing.
yeah, but I was there to work. Like, why am I standing in line for like an hour just to be told that actually, the this waiting is like a part of life and whatnot. Like, I already knew that, and I didn't need like Paolo to tell me that at the fair where I had like a number of appointments. Sorry, small beef. Like, if he wants to reach out and tell me why it was actually worth my time and everybody else's, then I'm happy to hear him out. But God, please, no more installations like that at the fair, because that is the place where we actually need to see. I mean, not just the products, but also the people. We need to have time to talk to you. So I went to the fair like twice, like spent an entire day there, and I still hadn't seen everything.
And I think it's the exclusivity which is getting an issue for Milan. But we are happy that we went and we had this
Yes, we were very, yes. And
similar.
I connected with so many great people, and I saw a lot of good, even great exhibits with fantastic use of color, which we can then build on, I think, in our respective roles, like that we can translate into our own jobs.
Tying that into talking about roles and excitement and new journeys, you just embarked on a new journey, and it's September is going to be an exciting month for you. Tell us a little bit more about this, super announcement of the Benelux edition of Manera.
Yeah. Yeah. For people who don't know, I was running L decoration in the Netherlands for about 9 years. And when I left last year, it was, I guess, time. And sometimes when people leave a job, they think, oh, I could maybe do something completely different. Apart from the fact that after about 3 weeks, I had the pleasure of meeting Eric Pastor, who's the founder of Manera. And the first time we spoke, I think, for about 3 hours. And then when we departed, we just turned to each other. It's like, so we work together now, I guess. And we were just like, yeah, we are. I've very rarely in my life met someone who I had this instant connection with. Like, it was kind of amazing. And so what we decided on is to build on what they've already, like, Enrique and his team in Spain have built with Manera is, I think, a fantastic new media title, which takes everything about that edition. If you hold a copy of Manera, it communicates that it takes the subject matter, its readers, and the people who contributed seriously. And I think that is sorely needed in this time, that you actually have like a magazine in this case that takes time to show you, to tell you these stories. And so we are launching the Benelux edition of Manera, which will be in English and will have international distribution, just like the Spanish does. Yeah, I think it's really exciting. And we are now, like, I told everyone, like, after Salona, we will sort of decide what will go into the first issue. And it is now officially after Salona. So I came back and I had 300 unopened emails from people say, so it's after Salona. Like, so what are you going to do? No, and it's all good. It's all good. I am enjoying this entire journey immensely. Like, every day is an absolute joy. And I'm really happy to be part of this new family. I think that what you can do as media is not just inform the public, but you also serve a community. And we do that through print, but we also do that through design. I have some ideas on a podcast as well. So who knows, you might be part of mine in the near future to cater to that connection and to show people what is happening in this industry that we love. There are a lot of people out there for whom design and interior, it is their whole world.
Yeah, true.
And yeah, and I don't care if those people live in Paris, in New York, in Amsterdam, in Madrid. I don't care. I will serve them like to the best of my abilities together with the team that we've put together, just like Enrique does with the Spanish title and Maria with the Mexico edition. And so, yeah, it's been really great. This was also one of the things, the standouts for Milan. I got to spend a lot of time with the team from Spain, and I also brought some of my own team members along. It felt like, we're building like this new family. And so if anyone's out there thinking like I should be in MANERA, you should reach out. Like this is, I love hearing from people. I love people showing me their work and see if we can spread the word. Like the idea is to tell primarily local stories. So I want to be able to share a lot of what is great about the region that I'm in with the rest of the world. Our primary focus will be the Benelux, but like like in September, if you're at Barnes and Noble in New York, you can pick up a copy of MANERA. You have to. All right. So this is a final anecdote. So I'm listening to a podcast, right? And it's with Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, former Speaker of the House in America. And she wrote a book because she'd been, in Congress for eons. And the interviewer asked her, like, what's the special sauce? Like, how come you were so successful? And she said, well, I'm not the person who knows every bill in and out, and not everyone likes me, so I'm not like super convincing. He's like, okay, but that makes it even more impressive. Like, I still don't know why you were able to do this. And then she says this. She says, I know better than most people when it is time to make a decision, and then I make it. I don't always know if it's the right decision, but I know it's time to make a decision. And so then the action lies with me because I'm the one moving, this thing forward because I have made this decision. And if it's not the right decision, that will become clear very, very quickly. And then I just make another. And that whole idea has been living rent-free in my head since I heard it. So I am now and I invite everyone to do the same, is to be aware of when it is time to make a decision and then just to make it. Because it is always very hard to figure out what the right decision is. And you can, think about it forever and then you're still not making a decision and nothing changes. So I'm very happy that when I met Enrique and he asked me to come on board, I just said yes. I said yes ridiculously, like almost embarrassingly quickly. I was like, yes, I'm doing this.
What
yes.
happened to you is Enrique happened because Enrique
Yeah.
to me, and that's just what he does. That's his superpower, I think,
I think so. I think so. He has this knack for connecting with people in a very profound way.
Thank you so much, Evelien, for being part on the Color Authority journey to everything that is color.
Oh, you're so welcome. So it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I hope people will find it interesting. And they should let us know, I think. So you're on Instagram. I'm also on Instagram. So I'm Evelien.Reich, Reich. Just let me know. Like, if you think I'm talking out of my behind, then just tell me what I'm getting wrong, because that's also part of life, to figure out the things that you're not getting right. All right, thank you.
Thank you for listening to another podcast of the Color Authority. I hope you enjoyed it. Please rate, comment, and feedback the show. This is now a beautiful option on most podcast directories. So let us know what you think. And next month, we will come back to you with another colorful episode.